Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm a student from Singapore and today I'll be sharing with you guys how I used to study for my exams and why I don't use these methods anymore. So let's go. Over here you'll find the three inefficient ways that I'll be using to study for my exams. First up we have cramming, where I just study all the knowledge that I need right before the exam. Next up we have rereading, where I take out my notes and just keep rereading the content until I get it into my memory. Lastly, we have summarizing, where I make a brief overview of the chapter and then I study it. In the next few slides, I'll be explaining why all these methods are quite inefficient ways of studying. So first up, let's talk more about cramming. I think the reason why I did this in the past is because it can help you to so-called free up your time for your day-to-day life. Because essentially, you will be studying for the exam just right before it. So for your normal day-to-day basis, you can have more time to engage in your hobbies or perhaps just socialize with your friends. But when it comes to the exam period, it gets really torturous because by then you have forgotten all the content that you need for the exam. So when you actually study for it, it gets a lot more intensive. It can perhaps be unbearable. So overall for the cons, I feel that sometimes you may not even to be able to finish the content in time. At the start of your new school life, the number of content that you need is quite a small chunk. But as you progress, it may get so big that you cannot even study all the content that you need in time by cramming. So as for example, this was my chemistry notes after 2 years of my A-levels, and the content was just so huge that although I started from 1 p.m. and started and ended studying at 4 a.m., I was still wasn't done with the content. Also, you may forget what you have learned after the exam, because usually you'll be taking back-to-back exams on different subjects. So maybe the first day you'll be taking like maybe English, then followed by mathematics, then physics, and etc. So by then you have already forgotten whereas your knowledge on English and math. And this whole cramming process will keep repeating itself and it can get quite torturous when it comes to the exam period. So next up, let's talk more about rereading. I think the reason why some students like to do this is because it requires very minimal effort for your learning. Because essentially you will just keep rereading the notes until you try and get it ingrained into your memory. But the issue with this is that sometimes you may need to reread it multiple times for you to finally remember or understand the content. So in this case, it's a very time inefficient way of studying for a subject. So let me refer you to this transition element table that I had to memorize for my chemistry exam. So with all these colors that I need to memorize and all the chemical formulas of it, I had to read it multiple times for me to get this knowledge ingrained. And by then, when I actually take the exam, I may not even be sure that I can remember this whole table of stuff. So overall for the cons, I find that this is just a very passive form of learning because you just need to keep reading the notes and also you may not even be sure whether you can remember the content you have read by the time you finish consolidating this chapter. Lastly, let's talk more about summarizing. I think why I did this in the past is because it's quite easy for you to study and get a general view of the whole chapter. But the problem with summarizing is that sometimes if a summary is too shallow, you may also miss out on the key points or words that are required for you to write in exams. Overall for the cons, I think that if your summary is too broad, it may lead you to miss out on key points that you are required to write in the exam. And also depending on the depth of a summary, you may sometimes mislead yourself into thinking that you understand the subject. But once you engage the subject on the deeper analysis, you may realize that you don't understand the material quite well. I wish I had some examples to show you guys, but I've already thrown away or perhaps lost the summary notes from my school. So now let's talk about the main issues that we have discovered with all the previous studying methods. Firstly is how to lead a balanced lifestyle. How do I engage in a healthy level of studying while making sure that I also remember and understand my content? And next up is memory retention. How can I ensure that I remember what I learned for extended periods of time? So for the next video, I'll be talking about these concepts that I'm quite sure you all have heard before, active recall, as well as spaced repetition. But I'll be placing a greater emphasis on how I personally use this myself. So thanks for watching the video guys. Pardon me if this video is not good because this is my first time making a video, but I will definitely do my best to try and improve for subsequent videos. So thanks for watching.